Thank you very much, Fatima. First of all, my sincere apologies. Sometimes we can't control Swiss Air and how fast they fly to get here. But next time, I think we'll put in a special request that they fly even faster. Sheikh, Your Excellency, the image that you have portrayed is an image that is not just seen in one part of Iraq. It is seen throughout Iraq since this massacre has begun. And imagine if you had thousands of these children seeing what this one child saw. And then fast forward that 15 years from now, what kind of human race is going to be here when we are gone? And that is the aim for which the World Federation is working towards, to ensure that these displaced people, irrespective of race, creed, religion, can actually become effective and meaningful members of society 20 years from now. We are a Shia organization, and we have been that, and we promote that. But at the same time, all our work has been for the human race and for the humankind. And that is our aim. Our aim is to ensure that we partner with people like Alayn, who are doing fantastic work. It is not easy to do developmental work in a country that was torn by war, that had huge issues through its history that you have heard. And it is finding such what I call gems in countries like this and giving it a platform and facilitating to ensure development take place. Because it's easy to send money. It's very difficult to convert somebody who has seen harrowing things into a hugely effective human being so that they can be active in their community. And that is what our aim is insofar as Iraq is concerned. It is not just about sending aid, but more importantly, what Sheikh has touched on is to ensure that training, skill, development. There is no point flying in people into Iraq for the next 50 years. We want Iraqis to be trained so that they can run their aid development work, their aid people, because otherwise we are doing a disservice. And that is the ethos under which the World Federation works with our brothers across the board. And that is our aim of what we are trying to achieve to do this. And Iraq is an exciting opportunity for us because it has gone through matters that we have dealt with in other countries that we are hoping to replicate through the help of Alayn and others and the NGOs and donor community to see how we can highlight what's going on, at the same time ensure that we can uplift the lives of those who have been displaced, and in particular the orphans, the children and the women.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to briefly hand over to Abbas for some short comments. We are supposed to end at 11, but I would like to try and take some questions. So let's, sorry, 11:30. Oh, we have got until 11:30. Fine. So some brief comments from Abbas, and then I will take some questions from the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheikh, for the eloquent elaboration about the plight of the Iraqi population and the work of Alayn. Having seen firsthand the amazing work that Alayn has done and having conducted an impact assessment of various organizations, I firmly believe that of all the organizations that the World Federation is engaged in across our world, Alayn is one of the best charities working in Iraq. And therefore, it is that for that reason that we continue to work with and partner with Alayn. But furthermore than that, it's for that particular reason to be able to replicate through the leadership of Sheikh Amjad the same level of work and the same quality of work to be able to aid the displaced people who are currently in Iraq. And it is for that reason that we are actually right now working in Iraq to be able to provide a displacement campsite in south of Najaf, which will have hopefully a maximum capacity of 200,000 IDPs. Just hold for a moment on that figure, because 200,000 IDPs is like creating a new small city. That is going to be a task that requires everybody in this room, everybody in the international community, everybody in the donor community, but more importantly, everybody in the local community as well, to be able to help us so that we can go towards a developmental solution and not an aid dependency that has been happening in other areas of the world. Iraq is one of the most important countries in our world today, and it is for that reason we need to have a developmental solution, and a solution that incorporates the growth of the human beings that we're trying to assist, rather than creating just aid dependency, and that is essential. A little bit about the World Federation. The World Federation of KSIMC was founded over 30 years ago, and our practices is based upon the Shia faith. The World Federation is comprised of 150 global community centers with a base of 150,000 members and a history of working in international development for 20 years. Our motivation for working in Iraq stems from our close relationships and our identities with Najaf and Karbala and some of the shrines of Iraq. And with most of our prominent members of our community have been persecuted in Iraq, in prison, mentioned by some of the prisons and some of the crimes conducted under the Ba'ath regime mentioned by Sheikh Amjad. Moreover, however, our visibility of the plight of the Iraqi population over the past decades means we cannot sit idly by. This is how we met Alayn, and we share the same understanding and the need to help in Iraq. At the start of the current crisis, I got to Iraq, and the World Federation began its immediate relief work in Iraq. However, alongside that, we conducted rapid needs assessments of the situation in Iraq. We assessed all the IDPs between the road from Najaf to Karbala and the various roads from Najaf southwards. And what we found was our results highlighted that in Iraq right now in the south of Iraq right now there are 500,000 displaced people, and of those 500,000 displaced people, 200,000 of those IDPs are very vulnerable, and they're going to become homeless again at the end of this year if no campsite is arranged for them, first of all. Second of all, in rapid needs assessments in the healthcare section, we discovered that 10% of those populations face 10% of those populations will face fatalities if we do not put in a water, hygiene and a sanitation solution. And the current place where the IDPs are staying in between the road from Najaf to Karbala is only adequate to house the IDPs for a short period of time and not for a long period of time. And we have various people from Iraq in our audiences, and I would like to point out that in the first 2 weeks of my stay there, in the first 2 weeks while we were conducting the needs assessments of the conflict, the entire road between Najaf to Karbala was filled with displaced people from Tal Afar, from Sinjar, from various areas of the north of the country, and we spoke to and heard various victims from the Turkmen community especially. The third most important need we need to address is the concerns in addressing the immense psychological trauma of some of the young IDPs face, because psychological care is required, as the Vice President pointed out, to be able to create those individuals who will progress Iraq further 20 years down the line, and therefore by taking experts who can care for the needs, who can look after the needs of those victims who have become victims under the current crisis, and look after them and ensure that they can deal with the loss of their family members and the various losses that they've experienced. It will enable them to become productive members of society moving on. Whilst there were many other results from our analysis, and I would be more than happy to share with any member from the audience or any other organizations in more detail, we have built and developed a solution which will be predominantly based around the long term, and the infrastructure that we will be putting in to host a campsite for 200,000 IDPs will look after the immediate needs of the IDPs, the short, medium-term needs of the IDPs, and we aim to repatriate the IDPs back to the north of the country including looking at human rights and justice solutions. And more importantly, the structures of capital that we will be putting in will be required to assist the poorest people of the south of the country once the northern IDPs have been repatriated, and I believe that is essential. One of the key things that we are looking at right now, and we continue to focus upon, is the transition from aid to development, because we cannot under any circumstances repeat the creation of a campsite like the Dadaab in Kenya, in northeastern Kenya, where IDPs and refugees have stayed there for over 20 years. We need to think about repatriating these IDPs back to the north of the country once the conflict subsides, but more importantly, once they have the ability to go back and once we can actually ensure that their communities have been built. However, the reason why we're focusing on development is just as Amartya Sen describes it. Development is the process of enlarging people's choices and capabilities and freedoms so that they can live a long and healthy life. They need to have access to knowledge, a decent standard of living, and participate in the life of their community. We do not believe in short-term aid because that creates unsustainable dependencies. Rather, we look to test and drive a long-term strategy. As you all appreciate, to provide a campsite for 200,000 IDPs is an enormous task, and therefore we look to invite all the international donor community, the local organizations, and any partners we can find to be able to assist us in any capacity. However, initially, to take this step into a tangible, formative step, we are looking to prove the concept of an IDP camp for 1,000 most vulnerable families, which make up about 10,000 IDPs. And that is an essential first step to bringing about the entire campsite in a coalition base with all of the international community and not just one or two organizations, and with all of the local organizations, not just one or two of the organizations. And that, I believe, is the role of the World Federation, but also the role of the international community to provide intellectual capital and coordination where is absolutely necessary in order to be able to provide a better solution. To that end, we have acquired land south of Najaf to host the campsite, and we will be working upon building this campsite come October 2014, and we hope to have finished the proof of concept by January 2015 and hope to roll out the entire campsite over the next 24 months, which means anybody who can provide us with any sort of assistance to be able to do so in any capacity is more than welcome to speak to us, and we would be more than happy to indulge in a more lengthier conversation with regards to the details. However, it is a request of the World Federation to the Human Rights Council and to the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights to be able to look at the post-conflict transition of Iraq and to be able to focus upon the human rights of the victims of the current displaced crisis and the human rights of the victims of the people of Iraq, but more importantly to look at how can the process of repatriations begin and how to have a plan ready for when the conflict subsides so we can actually look to repatriate the IDPs back to their communities and rebuild those communities. To that end, I will conclude my remarks and hope to invite you all to engage with us for any further clarifications and questions.
Thank you very much, Abbas. So I'm going to open the floor for questions. What I will do to save on time is if we take 3 at a time, and if it's directed at a particular person on the panel, please do let me know. Yes.
Good morning. Thank you very much for giving me a chance to talk. I'm Dr. Abbas. I'm consultant community pediatrician, specialist in neurodisability in England, and work in Manchester area in Wigan. I have wealth of information about I'm Turkmen myself, Turkmen Shia, and originated actually, my mother is from Tus Hormato and my father from Amerli. And I think everyone knows what happened in Amerli past 3 months. And we have been doing a lot of work behind the scene, I have to say, as a group of young people, as well as we worked with the Alayn Foundation trying to raise the fundraising and communicate back to their, it's not just the fundraising, it's awareness raising as well as political push. We worked very hard actually with various lead from UK MPs as well as from Washington. We tried to highlight the suffering of the people, and specifically, as the Sheikh said, it took 75 days for Amerli to be under that struggle, for severe struggle with the 20,000 people under the siege for 75 days for the Western country to act, while for any suffering of any human being is not acceptable and is impeccable. However, the differences we saw when the Yazidi and the Christian, within 24-hour action was taken, and people noticed that suffering. And as I'm saying, I'm not disputing, everyone is entitled for help when they need it. Amerli suffered that long. It took 80 days for international community to come together to relieve that besiege. Believe me, the besiege is relieved. The suffering continues in Amerli because the villages around Amerli, 42 villages, were taken over by ISIL. So one of the villages the Sheikh probably mentioned, there are four documents. As I was asked actually from a group of, unfortunately, they're coming today, Save Turkmen, independent organization, mostly doctors, professionals, they just themselves, they working very hard actually trying to, I advised them 2 years ago, collect your data, evidence. People, when you present things, they want evidence from you. So they asked me to translate a few documents. This is one of the documents. I spent my Eid, I canceled my holiday to go away. I spent whole week translating this document. This was 100 pages from Arabic. This document was translated to Farsi, I think it's Turkish, as well as English, and the document is Arabic.
Dr. Ilhan, sorry to interrupt you. Thank you so much for...
There are various, in this presentation, various cases actually suffering of Turkmen. And as Sheikh said, it's mainly Turkmen Shia, but however, I have to raise is not just Turkmen Shia, is the Turkmen in general being targeted in this mayhem, I have to say. I have plenty of things I could work with the organization, as well as in the past 10 years, I tried with various Iraqi institutes from universities, medical schools, try to extend hand and try to help with the, as my specialty itself is pediatric neurodisability, and I have master in neurodisability and my own work leading in my area with this work. The intense outcome and the difficulties for these children suffering from these atrocities is impeccable, I have to say. I will give you just one example and shut up.
Sorry, Dr. Ilhan, I just want to take a few more questions, if that's okay.
One
but I
thing
will
is
ask the panel to address the very important point you raised.
Yeah.
If I have some time at the end, I will come back to you.
I will just one question.
Okay, yes,
I'm posing
yes,
it
please
about the displaced families. Are we looking for these displaced families to stay longer term? Because I will be concerned. These families need to go. We have to work with the international organization and with the Iraqi government. These families need to go back to their own home. Probably, yes, in next 3-4 months, but they need to go back to their homeland. They shouldn't be derooted like that and accept the fact whoever has done this to them, yes, we accept it, and that's fine. We will generate another place for them. That's not the root solution for the problem they faced and facing. We are not going to sort that problem in this way. I am part of the organization of the Yazidi and Christian. They have their news letters comes to me every single day. Yesterday I had an email from them telling 75% of Yazidi back to their homes with this appropriate support. Why not to the Turkmen to have that support and to have back to their lands?
So this is a very important point, and I'm going to ask the panel to address it as soon as I take 2 more questions. If anyone else has a question, please raise your hand. No questions? Yusuf.
I mean, there is obviously a gap in the development work between the people in the south and the people in the north. And I think lots of people are suffering because they are Shia, and I wish that the organization like the Sheikhs can coordinate more with the international developmental organizations, so there is some kind of a sort of cooperation in terms of what is missing and what they can do. And I wish the work of the World Federation every success, so that can bring this gap, that can narrow it a bit more. I seriously do.
Thank you very much for that point. So I think there are two important points there. Let's start with Shaba, and I'm going to move along the panel. Both of those points, the key things about Turkmen and the gap between North and South, and what you think can be done to address that.
Thank you, Fadim. I think it's a very critical point about long-term displacement and returning back. And I think our strategies, which Abbas has mentioned, is that long-term we expect people to go back to their homelands. We expect people to go back because we do not want to have the same mistakes that were made in the north side of Kenya and stuff. So that is our aim as much as anything else. However, critically, there is a dire need just now for housing, sanitation, and education until the conflict subsides or it becomes safer for people to go back. What you don't want to do is to move them back straight in, one, without support, two, without the ability of going through some counseling or work so that they become more productive, because they have moved away from a very traumatic homeland, and you want to return them when they are ready to go back. People have to go through their process of mourning and through their process of acceptance of what has happened before they can go back to become effective members of society. Our aim has always been that, to ensure that people go back. However, before they go back, that is where we come in, to say we need to provide the support, we need to provide housing, water, sanitation. Critically, we need to provide education and support for these people. They may have housing, they may have food, but if they are not settled in their own psychology, it will not take us anywhere. It will create more such conflicts as opposed to creating a long-term solution. What Said Yusuf has said is also critical, and I think that is, we are hoping this is a start where we have been able to bring an organization like Alayn to this forum to say, look, there is a lot of work that is going on, there is a huge gap, and this is now the opportunity for everybody to get together to say, how can we work collectively? This isn't a matter of who is going to be first and who is doing that. We are in the world of collaborative working to ensure, one, the suffering is highlighted, it is brought to the UN's attention, something is done. That is one element. We've got experts in that field who do that. You said Yusuf is extremely critical in doing that work. We've got people who do very well in aid development. We bring those people in so that it becomes a collective work, joined up thinking, joined up success is what we believe in. Otherwise, we will end up fractioned and no work will happen. The north-south divide is critical. Hence, the reason we have done this purely to highlight the issues that is happening in the south and the need for aid to happen in the south as much as it is happening up north. We don't want anybody to suffer, but at the same time, we don't want an imbalanced position when aid is being dropped on one part of the country and not the other part. And that is far greater of importance. And the biggest advantage we have in down south is that we have local organizations. It's just that they have not been tapped. And we are hoping that through the work we have done, that this is brought to light and the organizations that can work together.
Okay. Perhaps Sheikh could enlighten us with some of his thoughts on both of those questions, please.
السلام عليكم. أختي العزيزة، كلامك في شأن التركمان. لنكن عمليين وواقعيين. لا يمكن إعادة الشيعة التركمان الموجودين في المناطق الوسطى والجنوبية إلى مناطق سكناهم خلال ال6 أشهر القادمة، لأن العداء الذي يواجهونه من قبل المجاميع المسلحة والتي كانت في السابق متفرقة وغير واضحة المعالم أصبح لها الآن شكل واضح وعلني وتؤسس لنفسها لمدة طويلة في داخل تلك المناطق. لا يمكن في هذه الفترة القريبة، فلا بد من حل لإعانتهم. هذا ما حبيت أن أعلق.
Shukran,
Sorry,
Saeed.
Dr. Ilham, I'm just going to ask
Just
Abbas to come
one
back on
point
this.
to comment on.
I'll come back to you. I will
yeah.
come back to you. So if you could just comment briefly and then.
Yes. I would like to stress that this solution is a short, medium-term solution that is central to it is the tenet of repatriation. We have to repatriate. However, I fully agree with the words of the Sheikh. At the moment, the conflict rages on. The society in the north isn't ready to accept the Shia Turkmani. Furthermore than that, those areas are extremely unsafe. We have to ensure that we rebuild those areas. We provide a safe environment for them to return, and then we return those people. We also have to ensure that the north of Iraq is stable for the displaced people to return back. And at the moment, the assessments being made with the people, well, more and more people being displaced from the north, it is very unstable, and I highly doubt, while I'm not making a prediction, the point I'm trying to make is that these things will take time, which therefore requires a short and medium-term solution. And therefore, that's what we're trying to provide here right now. With regards to your point about Amarli, you're absolutely right. It took a while to highlight that particular case. However, it is not productive to compare one situation to another and make tenuous claims of correlation. I personally would suggest that each and every situation is very different. And of course, while we agree that there may be reasonings for why one may have come about over the other, it is hard to make that assessment, and it is hard to concretely say it is for this or that reason. Therefore, we believe that it is the responsibility of organizations in the international community to highlight all suffering of all kinds.
Thank you very much. I completely agree with both of you. I am not in dispute the need of the intense and immense need of the families at this moment. My point is, I'm saying is there is a political Iraqi government should be proactively working with other forces on the ground as well as international communities to make sure these families will go back. And I'm looking to the Sayyid because it took actually when Sayyid Sistani issued the fatwa about, it wasn't fatwa, about the Amarli and the support they needed from the Iraqi government. The first thing is one of the American journalists, he told me, he emailed me actually, we cannot ignore this support from Sayyid Sistani. We have to do something about it. We have to bring that to the attention of our government and to President Obama. That was the email was sent to me after the Sayyid. So Sayyid has role actually and in advising the government, Iraqi government, to put, I wouldn't say pressure as such, which is this responsibility of Iraqi government to make sure human rights is equally, whether it's Kurd, whether it's Arab, whether it's Turkmen, whether it's Yazidi, has every single member of Iraq living in that land has a right to that particular right of living and sovereignty, having access to education and their own land as well. So my point is there are other solutions as well. It's not just the humanitarian and World Federation working on the ground with this family. I'm looking for a long-term solution for, you're talking about Tel Afar, you're talking about more than 300,000 people. I mean, it's impossible task for an organization to do that. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry.
I'm just, I mean, I can understand the sister's stress. I mean, she's a doctor herself, and she is tormented by what has happened to the Turkmen. And this is really sad to see somebody who is going to treat tormented people herself becoming quite tormented. And I really understand this, and I almost want to cry to see this happening. But I do believe we have only very 4 more minutes. Let's use this time to get to hear some of the people who are here to see what they think of the situation.
Well, if anyone else has a question, please raise your hand or comment very briefly. We can address that. Okay. If not, then I'm just going to ask the panel for some closing comments on what you think the way forward is.
Thank you, Fatima. My only closing comment is the only way forward is collaborative working, and we've got to work on medium to long-term solutions, but critically at the moment we need to provide support to local NGOs and work with local NGOs to provide intellectual capital that is what I call abundantly available in the West. If we provide intellectual capital, everything else will flow to make the solution even easier for the Iraqi community. At the same time, it has to be a multitude of solutions to get to the cause that we need to reach.
Abbas, very briefly, and then I'm going to ask the Sheikh to give the very last comments.
I'll echo what Shaba said, but I would like to add that critically, while the long-term solution is required from the international community and the Iraqi government, it is also vital to provide the short and medium-term requirements in the campsites and to collaborate in able to do so.
And Sheikh, if you could just give us your final comments on what you think the future holds.
نعم. في الحقيقة احنا يعني نتمنى أن تتاح فرص أخرى لكي نستطيع أن نمد أيدي التعاون مع جميع المنظمات التي تساهم معنا في صنع السلام في داخل بلداننا وحماية الأطفال بالخصوص. وشكرا.
Thank you very much. Now, before you go over a couple of announcements, first of all, the reports that have been discussed today are available, so come and see us for those. Shuaib, who is just over here, will be handing out business cards of the Sheikh. So if you'd like to get into contact with him and learn more about the work that he's been doing, you can do that. And lastly, if you're interested in any of the work that's been mentioned today, we can take your contact details for further communication, and please speak to Abbas about this. So I'd like to thank our panel, especially respected Sheikh, for his comments. I'd like to thank the audience and the interpreter who's been working very hard to keep up with our fast pace of speech today. Thank you very much.